Alrighty. Well, this is where you can sort of go down the wormhole a little bit with Spanish. Now, a lot of people who are unfamiliar with the second language think that there's a literal translation and an exact translation every time for another word in another language. It doesn't really work like that. The real dumb ones assume the grammar's the same. Oh wow, yeah, no way known. The literal translation usually looks very choppy and very backwards. I've got a fairly old, actually, 1970s Spanish book, which has exercises in it, and you'll have the literal translation, and then you'll have the good translation that you can make sense in English. And when you read the literal one, it's very choppy. It's written in English, but it is a literal, almost word-for-word translation in Spanish. Those of you who don't know, probably most of you won't know because some of this happened when I wasn't on YouTube. Really speaking, I've had a bit of a shot at 5 different languages, and some of them I am fluent in, such as English, and others I aren't. There's another one, Bislama, which is a modified English that has really screwy grammar, a few extra words that I believe are even derived from French, a few words that are just native words, straight up tribal words, and the grammar all rearranged, and basically most of the grammar and most of the minor words that you can't really see in the focus here, your it and or that this, all of that's just blown out the bloody window, and it has such a limited grammar that it comes out damn near 5 times as long as you'd expect it to. And add a couple of French words in there, and only 1 or 2 words which are descriptive words, but I believe them to be French because they actually sound more French. And the fact that Bislama come from Vanuatu, where they speak both French and English, but really speaking, they speak French and Bislama, which is this modified English, which was actually developed in Australia during the days of manually harvesting sugarcane, when we had a lot of Vanuatuans over here. And then you've got the Solomon Islands version of Bislama, which is, there's 2 of the main words have been shortened just to confuse you a bit. And then the accent absolutely obliterates the hell out of any hope of understanding it, because the accent's like some drunk French guy trying to speak Pidgin English. I mean, that's how bad it is. The accent is 80% of the trouble. But I understand it all, and I can watch it, and I can see when they botch up all the translation in the subtitles. So basically I'm fluent with English and Bislama, including the real screwy Solomon Islands version. Had a slight taste of French. You guys never knew this, but a bit of a taste of Thai, which is interesting because they have the Spanish aspect of having, what is it again? Sopa de agra. And I think that's soup of garlic. And we've got another one sitting around here, which is a good example. Coconut juice, jugo de coco, juice of cocoa. They have a lot of that in Spanish. House de Blanco, White House. Not House de Blanco, Casa de Blanco, House of White, White House. I forget, maybe that's crema. I can't remember. I think it might be crema. So, I mean, Casa de Crema. You've got a lot of something off something. You've got the major part first, D, which means of, or does it, and then the next thing, the minor thing after it. And you've got that in Thai, and the rest of the grammar in Thai is basically almost identical to English. But like a lot of Asian languages, aside from Japanese, Japanese is the one exception, one exception that I know well of, it's a tonal language, so you get bizarre tones in it, which, yeah, you change the twang of something and you go from I like eating horse to I like dog shit. Or, no, I like riding horse to I like dog shit. And there's literally just a slight twang in the way you say the last two words, and that's how nuts that is. But Thai is, because the grammar's so similar to English, it's actually bloody easy. The other thing which is interesting with Thai is when you start dealing with families and stuff like this, oh wow, they got a whole little setup and a whole little order of how you explain, you know, your grandmother's cousin type thing, and it's like you can't, it's down the line. My father's mother's and it's like the way it's explained, you can track the exact line of the family. It's not like, oh, well that's just a cousin of mine. It's like, that is my cousin who is my mother's sister's daughter type thing, you know, and it's not, well, that's my female cousin. It's my mother's sister's daughter, and it's sort of, but there's a whole little the way that structure's set up. So when you explain family, oh wow, like it's very, very specific, and there's no actual word for it's just my cousin. It's got to be said that it's your mother's sister's daughter type thing. It's a real bit of a shit show like that, just trying to explain family members. But that's Thai. So, you know, we're looking at English, Bislama, which is fairly rough, and the Solomon Islands, very rough Pidgin English. Spanish, a useless amount of French, although my sister is quite good with French, and Thai. And the funniest thing of all is that I go into this area, you know, to buy stuff in this Asian area, and you got a lot of Vietnamese there. And if you got anyone who starts speaking Laos, or Laotian rather, from Laos next door, you know, Cambodia, Vietnam, Laos were all French Indochina, but now they're three separate countries. Well, a good 60% of Laos is directly transferable to Thai. Another 20% is fairly close, a bit like when you see Portuguese and you see Spanish, you can almost work out what they're saying, because it's close but not. And then the remaining 20% is completely different. So 80% of it is either exact or fairly close, with another 20%. And I was in this area in this shop, and I was looking for, well, for a USB light that I can plug straight in a USB battery, because I used to be able to get these things anywhere and everywhere, and I went to 5 shops and I couldn't find one. And so anyway, the owner picks up a mobile phone, she's talking away on a phone, and a blooming brain, it was like, boop, it was almost like Alexa, boop, boop. It was like when Alexa gets triggered, or, you know, the Google Home gets triggered. My brain done the same bloody thing, like Alexa getting tripped off, you know. And I realised because she was speaking Laos, and I could start to not understand it, but remember and recognise some of the words in Thai. But I recognise the words, but I forget the meaning. But she wasn't speaking Thai; she's speaking Laos. You know, and I'd come from the lugar de hablar español just earlier. So So, so and all three languages rebounding off each other at that time. It's just so weird that it just sort of like my brain just sort of lit up because I heard some words I recognised, but I couldn't tell you the meaning because I've forgotten half of it because I only spent a few months on that. But French I spent so little on it, it was ridiculous. But just little dribs and drabs I used to remember, and now I've basically forgotten all French. But I'm going to show you something here in how you can get thrown around in bloody circles. I was trying to work out, how to say, something along the lines of mi vivo en granja. And I thought, well, that's near enough, mi vivo en granja. It's probably not the preferential way to say it, and I'll find out, no, I'm supposed to say, vivo en una granja instead. I live at a farm. And so I thought, well, I know in is N. But what the hell's on? Well, it turns out N is also on. But then you start getting down here. And what does it tell me, if my little magnifier? It tells me that N is also in, it's also on, and it's also at. Let's just have a little closer look here. At is the same as in. It's the same as a, which if I check in my book here, that means to. To the left, to the right, to round the corner. That's a directional to. But here it's telling me that N can mean at, and at can mean N. It can also mean to a direction. It could also mean D, which I see as of, por, which is for, para, which is for in relation to people. So, here this gift is for you, it'll be para tu, for you, para tu. Whereas if you say you need money for a bus fare, you're more likely to use the por version of for instead of the para, generally. Para seems to be more associated with for people than for things. But here it is telling me that at, when all this goes right, it's telling me that at is in or on, it's to direction, it's of, it's for, or it's for person related. And it's just like, that's just great, because now I'm just confused, and it's like, when someone says any of these, when they say for, are they meaning at? When they say in or on, are they meaning it? It's hard enough that N is in and it's on at the same place, but then it's at, but then at's a whole bunch of other different... This is how you can really get spun around in circles, and especially with stuff like Google Translate, where it'll give you the absolute least used one, and it's like, well, it can mean this, and it's like, yeah, but no bastard is ever going to come and say it in that context, in that way. Maybe, but 80 to 90% of the time, they'll choose a different word. It's great because you start dealing with, I think it's horses and donkeys, and you've got so many different words in Spanish for everything. You know, a baby donkey's a burrito? Shit, I had a laugh when I seen that one. That's another bizarre one. But you want to do with pigs, oh wow, frickin' hell. Just to say pig or swine, it's not pig or swine, it's like, there's like 4 different versions sort of thing. And I mean, some of them, oh, well, it's sow, it's boar, it's this. No, but even not really that. It's like 4 or 5 versions just to say pig. And today I heard the word pig being said by a Latin American. Porca. Porca. Oh, thank God. At least it's an easy... They don't use one of these other 4 other different ways. They say porca. Oh, thank God. Pork. Porca. Okay, that's got to be easy. But this is the one they commonly use. And there's some that it just tings a little bit easy because it's almost adopted off English, or it's very close to it. Like, sometimes with ticket, they've got one particular word for ticket that's a Spanish word. But then they also say ticketo, and so everybody goes off. I'll just go with ticketo because it sounds like English. I'll go with porco because it sounds like, pork, and then it makes more sense. It's funny how a lot of words, like I heard that there were very similar words. First I heard there's almost 400 that are interchangeable. Then I heard, no, it's 600. Latest one, it was 3,042. And you just like, oh, rightio. And there's some like certain words that end with T-I-O-N. They change it with C-I-O-N. And you don't say Keon, you say Theon. So explanation. Explanation. Instead of explanation in English, it's explanation. See how I'm saying it with a lisp? You know why? Because native Spanish speakers say it with a lisp. You know why they say it with a lisp? Because one king of Spain had a lisp, and he decided that he was not going to be wrong. Everybody else is going to have, the whole country had to speak with a lisp, so that he was speaking right, and they all followed him. And so he made the whole country get a lisp. No shit! So that nobody could say, the king isn't speaking right. No, the king's speaking right, or I'm going to cut your head off. I'll make sure the king speaks right. All you bastards all speak with a lisp, so the whole country turned and spoke with a lisp. And it's still the same to this day. That's why you say explanation. Because it's not explanation, it's explanation. Because the king spoke with a lisp, so now you've all got to speak with a lisp. It's such a bizarre turn of events for a language to go that way. But there's a lot of things where you see where there'll be words that make sense for English. But it's not the one you'd use, generally speaking. So, what is business? Enterpriso. Enterpriso, which you can safely assume is enterprise. And we know that an enterprise is a business, but it's like, you're not going to say this is an enterprise outside of maybe a legal document or something like that. Outside of an investor, statement sort of thing, a company, what do they call it, like a company goals or a company, what do they call it? It's like a friggin', like a company aims document. There's an official way of saying it. I forget what the official word is, but you know what I mean, where it's almost like they write up the company goal sort of thing. You'll see the word enterprise written in that. When you see blah blah enterprises, you'll know XYZ Enterprises means it's a business. You'll know it's a business, but it's not the preferred way of saying it for us, but you still know what it means. But for the Spanish, or Latin American Spanish speakers, that is their preferred way of saying it, is not businesso, it's enterpriso, meaning enterprise. And a hell of a lot of words are like that, where it's not really pig, it's porca. Which is sort of like, yeah, you can say that's pork, but pork is pig, you know what it means, type thing. And it's sort of, you have these different ones where it's sort of, you can make a connection, and it isn't just T-I-O-N changed to C-I-O-N, there's enough of a connection. So I've got a funny feeling that 3042 or 3045, that actually includes words like that. I think so. And there's a bloody lot of it. To say you're alone or to say you are lonely is the same thing. Estoy solo. Solo. Alone. Also lonely. Also only, as in one. And if they say well, this is cheap. It's only $5. I'm not too sure, but don't be surprised if they say, es solo fucking $5. I forget me numbers. I'll be honest, I'm bloody hopeless at numbers in terms of I just haven't bothered learning numbers. I'm too busy learning conversation and joining words to get the grammar into gear, because some of the vocabulary isn't too bad, but the worst vocabulary is the short joining words where you've got you got 3 to 5 letter words starting with ES, and there's a whole clusterfuck of them, and they mean, you know, just about everything. It means this, it means that, it means those, it means... There's all of these words that are all estoy, to be, estar, you know, esse, you are, tu, meaning you, tu eres, you are, eres is are, es is, you know, and it just like, you got all these, estoy, estar, estas, estos, estas, there's so many of them like that, but they all mean different things. And then thank God the word where is donde. Oh, at least it isn't another S something or other. That's in case your brains are going through the blender with which S you're using this time, because you know it starts with S and you know it's no more than 5 letters long, but you're like, fuck, I've only got like 7 or 8 of these bastards stuck in my head and I've got to remember exactly what one's what, you know? You know, and you... Anyway, and then they got the usted, ustedes, just in case you get rid of the S's, in case you're over the estos, the estas, and the estar, and the estas, then you got the usted and the ustedes, which is, you know, them and those people type thing, and it's like, there's a couple of groan moments where you're trying to go, now exactly, and then when they say all these joining words, like, you know, everything else will be said a lot stronger, you know, a lot slower, you know, fortes, strong, you know, and they'll say all these, fortes, and you know it's not fuego, fire, you know it's fortes, strong, and there's another one that's like what way, and that's like, que fue, or something like that. I can't exactly remember how fue. I'm not quite on the fue, but I've got a bit of an idea where it's placed. But, you know, this is the thing, like, whew, some of these ones, there's just too much that's so damn close together. And, you know, it can be a sort of a bit of a struggle, whereas some of these other ones, they're pretty obvious. And, you know, some of these ones is... Iglesia is church, Ingles or Inglesia is English, and you're sitting there going, Inglesia, Iglesia, Inglesia, Iglesia. What's the damn difference? Well, one's church and one's English. You know, it throws you for a bloody six sometimes, and some of them it ain't, you know, too bad, and you sort of... some of them are all right, or there's enough of a change that you know what the change is, but just so long as, you know, you don't go and order a baby donkey instead of ordering a burrito. There's so many of these things where I'm picking up very quickly on the ones that are close because they're so easily confused, and it's somehow my brain triggers, and so then I avoid the confusion. So I'm sort of good in that way, but there's... Yeah, it just seems that all your S words and all your joining words, they say them just like, what? And then you come to a bigger word, you know, enterpriso, pollos, chicken, you know, fuego, fire, fuertes, strong, bienvenidos, welcome. You know, and some of these they'll say slow, but then they get to the little short words and they're like, and it's like, fucking hell, we hit that like hitting corrugations with a car at 100 miles an hour. Like, You're like, fucking slow up a bit, you know. All the short words that actually matter, they seem to say fast, and then all the longer words they'll say slower. And it's maybe because they're longer that it's easier for me to identify, because they've said over a longer period of time than the short joining words. But anyway, we bang and clang along, and we're getting there. I just can't speak the speed they do. I've got to think for a second before I can even say it. And the trouble is, then you sort of, if you try that shit, I know what they're going to do. They just start talking to you in English instead, and it makes it easier for them to talk to me in English. But then I ain't learning shit. You know, I want to learn shit. I don't want to just keep throwing back to English every bloody time. Some of them, they come up to me, and I swear black and blue, they see the blue eyes, and they just fucking talk in English. Because they see the blue eyes, and it's a dead giveaway I'm not Latin American, you know. And so, yeah. Anyway, that's that.